Like so many tools in the blacksmith shop, you'll get more use out of your treadle hammer if you make tools that make this tool better. So today I thought I would take a brief look at some of the tooling that I use under the treadle hammer. Now there are lots of varieties of treadle hammer tooling. Everybody that owns a treadle hammer probably makes things a little bit differently. So don't take this as the end-all be-all of treadle hammer tooling. If you get a chance to visit somebody's shop that has a treadle hammer, see what kind of tooling they use under their hammer. Maybe they've got some better ideas than I do. To a large extent, treadle hammer tooling is nothing more than the same tooling that you would use at the anvil with a striker. Only treadle hammer tooling tends to be a little bit smaller in size. This particular hot cut could work at either place. I use it with a striker at the anvil when I have the luxury of a striker, but it also works excellently at the treadle hammer. These rod-handled tools, on the other hand, I tend to use only at the treadle hammer. They aren't really strong enough to put up with the missed blows that a striker might generate. And this particular tool, or this particular set of tools that I made, is just a round rod that's been riveted through a hole. So if I ever break or bend this to the point I need to replace the handle, all I have to do is punch this out, make a new rod, rivet it in. I don't have to do any welding or anything like that. And you can make all sorts of different tools. This is a little set hammer. This is a center punch. What I was using at the beginning of the video is simply a hot cut. I was using it to split a line down a bar. And you can make punches. And this is a different style of rod handle that's wrapped around the tool. And that works as well. These tend to be a little bit looser, which can sometimes be a problem, but can also sometimes be nice because it doesn't generate as much shock to your hand. This style of wrap was pretty common when I first made my treadle hammer. Clay Spencer makes a lot of tools with a simple rod handle like this, where the ends are just pulled off to the sides and they're welded to whatever the tool is. This actually happens to be a single-sided die for making a mouse, and we'll look at that mouse in another video. But you could use that same handle and just weld it to the sides of these, and that would work just fine, and it saves you the trouble of riveting, and perhaps that's easier for you. Now, I actually find it kind of interesting that tools like this that would be used at the anvil are often much bigger and much heavier than treadle hammer tools. A striker working at the anvil tends to swing a sledgehammer 8 to 12 pounds, maybe 14. Back in the day when strikers were more common, 20 pounds was probably a pretty common hammer for a striker to swing. But the tools are very heavy. On the other hand, the treadle hammer has a 60-pound head. It's at least 3 times bigger than what any striker would swing, probably more like 4 or 5 times heavier than what a striker would swing. But we tend to make fairly light, delicate tools for the treadle hammer. And I think that's just because the treadle hammer is more precise. You're not going to get the glancing blows. You don't need to have a bigger surface area for them to hit. And I think it just comes down to the precision of the treadle hammer and the fact that you're not always wailing away on the treadle hammer. You can step as hard or as light as you need to, and if you're going to be stomping on it really heavy, you might want to make heavier tools. But whether you use wooden handled tools, rod handled tools, or if you make tools that are held in a pair of tongs, lots of options for how you can make treadle hammer tools. Like I say, look in other people's shops and see how they make their tools. I've tried lots of different things. I mentioned Clay Spencer's name. He's actually the one that designed my inline treadle hammer. He gave those plans to ABANA, so if you're looking for plans for a treadle hammer, either the inline hammer or the swing arm hammer, both of which Clay has plans for, he has given those to ABANA, and I will link down in the description to ABANA's site where you can buy those plans. Clay doesn't sell them, so don't bug Clay. He wants you to go to ABANA to buy them. That's a donation from him to ABANA. And if you don't know Clay Spencer, he's a really sharp blacksmith. He didn't start blacksmithing till later in life, but he's one of the better blacksmiths out there. He frequently teaches classes at the John C. Campbell Folk School. Well worth your time to go take a class with Clay if you get the opportunity. By the way, he's a retired rocket scientist, so he's a pretty sharp guy. Now, just like when working at the anvil, if you're using a chisel on the treadle hammer, you don't want to cut through into your anvil block on the treadle hammer. And in Clay's design, This is removable, so you can make an insert for it that is soft. But a buddy of mine made this one. It's got a brass plate, and it's got a little frame around it that just fits right over there. And you're cutting on the brass. And if you start to wear the brass out, it gets all chopped up. You can take it loose from the screws, you can flip it over, use the backside, then you can replace it, no big deal. So that's a really handy, quick way to cut. But because of the square hole that this has, you can also use tools like swedges and fullers that would also work on the anvil if your hardy hole is the same. These need to have a fairly short shank because there's not much distance here, but that is an option for tooling under the treadle hammer. You can also make other die plates that just fit in there and fill up the whole thing, so you can make drawing dies for the treadle hammer. You'll notice this hardy shank is a loop, and there's a reason for that. The top die on the treadle hammer is just held in with a wedge, so you can take that die out. You can insert one of these that has the loop, put the wedge back in, and because I've got the loops running in different directions on the top and the bottom one, if I take this one up and turn the loop that way, they go in 90 degrees, so that gives me a little bit of versatility there. So anytime you need double dies in the treadle hammer, that's easy enough to do. Another thing we've looked at with the treadle hammer is the use of handheld tools, and that's an option for doing very precise work under the treadle hammer. The problem is that you don't want your hand under here if there's a chance you're going to squish your fingers. So I've got this thing, this is just a pipe clamp, is all that is, and I can adjust it, set the height for the chisel, and then when I put material in there, it's got just enough height that I'm getting a good strike on my tool. And I try to make all my tools that I'm going to use for a particular type of project about the same length, so I can just set this one time. But now I don't have to worry about hitting my hand. And then the pipe clamp will stop the treadle hammer, and it only goes down so far. So there are lots and lots of tooling options for use at the treadle hammer, both handled tools so your hand stays away from the hammer and from the heat, as well as handheld tools. You can make specialty dies, specialty inserts for the hammer, all sorts of things you can do with a treadle hammer. Again, mentioning Clay Spencer's name, he has demonstrated numerous times at the Rocky Mountain Blacksmithing Conference. Matter of fact, I'm not sure if he's ever missed a year. He's always there. And he has done lots of stuff with a treadle hammer, and his imagination is limitless when it comes to making tooling for the treadle hammer. So if you're interested in that, again, down in the description, I'll put a link to the Rocky Mountain Smith's website where you can find DVDs of Clay Spencer demonstrating. Now, Rocky Mountain Smiths is putting more and more videos on YouTube. They have their own YouTube channel, and they put videos in 2-hour blocks from past conferences. There might be some of Clay's stuff there, but I don't remember seeing any of Clay's videos. If there is one of Clay using a power hammer, I'll try to link it right up here, but we'll have to see if there's one on there. If not, you can buy the DVDs. I think they're $10. Then you get to keep it. You can watch it at your leisure. You don't have to watch it on the computer. You can watch it on your television. Now, these tools that I showed in the beginning of the video, I think we've done one video making one of these tools. It showed how the wire handle was made, showed how the tool was made, how they were attached. And again, I'll try to link to that somewhere in this video, either up in here or at the very end. Don't want to crowd too many links up here, one right after the other, but we'll see what we can get in there. But it sounds like I've talked long enough on this subject. We will see lots of tooling for the treadle hammer in future videos. We'll make some specialty tooling for the treadle hammer. I just wanted to give you an idea of what some of the tooling that is common for the treadle hammer looks like and some of the things I have. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, I would love it if you hit that subscribe button. Feel free to watch some of the other videos, share the videos with your friends, but then take time in your day to get out to your shop, make something, but stay safe. Wear your safety glasses. We'll see you for the next one.